So, why do some great civilizations last for centuries? Building these incredible legacies, while others just crumble into dust? That's a huge question, right? And today, we're diving into the answers that Jared Diamond lays out in his amazing book, Collapse.
This poem, Ozymandias, just nails that feeling perfectly. You have this traveler who finds these giant broken legs of a statue in the middle of nowhere. It's a really stark reminder that even the most powerful empires can just vanish. And it leaves us with this one nagging question. Why? What went wrong?
All right, so to start digging into this, we're not actually going to start with some grand ancient kingdom. Nope, we're going to look at two dairy farms. One is modern, the other, not so much. They're separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years.
So first up, you've got Holst Farm over in Montana. It's a bustling, super high-tech family operation. Then you've got the ruins of Garda Farm in Greenland, which has been abandoned for more than 500 years. But here's the crazy part. Back in their day, they were so similar. I mean, each one was the biggest, most successful, most cutting-edge farm in its region.
So that's the real head-scratcher, isn't it? They were so alike. Why did one make it and the other just disappear? To figure that out, we can't just guess. We need a framework, a toolkit for analyzing what makes a society either fragile or resilient.
And that's exactly what Diamond gives us. It's a 5-point framework that helps us systematically look at why a society might fall apart.
Okay, but first, let's get on the same page about what collapse actually means. We're not just talking about a bad recession or a tough decade. No, this is a drastic drop in population and a total breakdown of political and social life, all happening over a huge area for a long, long time. It's the whole system shutting down.
So here's the checklist. First, you look at environmental damage. Is the society hurting its own life support system? Second, climate change. Not man-made necessarily, just natural shifts that put pressure on people. Third, are there hostile neighbors trying to take you over? Fourth, what about your friends? Did you lose key trading partners? And number 5, and this one is absolutely crucial, how did the society respond to all these problems? Now, not every collapse has all 5, but this list is an amazing way to diagnose what went wrong.
All right, theory's great, but let's see how this framework holds up in the real world. We're going to look at some of the most fascinating and dramatic collapses in history.
First stop, Easter Island, Rapa Nui. Think about it, one of the most isolated, inhabited places on the entire planet. And on this tiny speck of land, a society did something absolutely incredible right before they completely destroyed themselves. Get this, 88 tons. Let that sink in. That's how much the biggest statue they put up weighed, and they did it with just people power, logs, and rope. It's an absolutely mind-boggling feat of engineering.
But that incredible achievement, it was also their undoing. Their obsession with building these statues led them to cut down every last tree on the island, which leads to Diamond's really haunting question, what was the guy thinking who cut down the last tree? I mean, what did he say? With no trees, they couldn't build big canoes to fish, their soil washed away, and their society just imploded into starvation, warfare, and, yeah, even cannibalism.
Then you have the Maya, another case altogether. At their peak, around 750 AD, they were incredible. Huge cities, massive temples. But while their kings were busy waging war and boasting about it, a creeping disaster was unfolding. They were cutting down their forests, which led to massive soil erosion and crop failure. That combination of internal fighting and environmental collapse was a death blow. And it happened fast. In just a few generations, their magnificent cities were empty, abandoned to the jungle.
Okay, now this story from Greenland is so telling. You had two groups of people facing the exact same problem. The climate was getting colder. You had the Norse, who saw themselves as European Christian farmers, and then you had the Inuit, who were expert Arctic hunters. Well, the Norse were so stuck in their ways, so determined to be farmers, they refused to learn from the Inuit. They wouldn't adopt things like kayaks or harpoons to hunt seals. They literally chose to starve to death rather than change their identity. The Inuit, the flexible society, they thrived. The rigid one just disappeared.
But see, this proves that collapse is not a foregone conclusion. It's not inevitable. Take Tokugawa-era Japan. They were facing the exact same problem as Easter Island, a major timber shortage. But instead of just running out, their leaders made a conscious choice. They put in place these really smart, top-down, sustainable forestry plans. And it worked. They saved their forests and their society.
So that brings us right back to the million-dollar question. If the warning signs are so obvious,
If you can literally see the cliff you're walking towards, why on earth do some societies just keep walking? It's so easy for us to look back and think, how could they be so stupid, right? But Diamond says it's not about being foolish or smart. It's about a handful of very predictable, very human traps that any society, even ours, can fall into. He calls it a roadmap to disaster. Here's how it works. First, you might fail to even see a problem coming, maybe because you've never faced it before. Or you fail to perceive it because it's creeping up so slowly, hidden in the normal ups and downs. Then there's the really insidious one, rational bad behavior. This is when a small, powerful group is actually profiting from destroying things for everyone else. And then you have those disastrous core values, like with the Greenland Norse, where the very things that made you strong now make you too rigid to adapt. Put it all together, and you get a complete failure to act until it's just too late.
Okay, so Easter Island, the Maya, that's all ancient history, right? What does it have to do with us? Well, as it turns out, everything. These lessons are more urgent for us now than they ever were for them.
Diamond uses this great analogy of a Dutch polder. You know, it's land that's been reclaimed from the sea, and it's protected by one single wall, one dike. If that dike breaks anywhere, it doesn't matter where you live inside, everyone gets flooded. In the past, the Maya could collapse, and honestly, the Romans would never even know. But today, we're all so interconnected. A financial crisis or an environmental disaster in one spot sends ripples across the entire globe instantly. We are all living in the same polder.
And this is what's putting a huge strain on our shared global dike. The average person in a developed, first-world country consumes resources and creates waste at a rate that's 32 times higher than someone in the developing world. 32! That imbalance, that tension, it's just not sustainable in the long run.
And this leads us to what Diamond calls the modern dilemma. You have billions of people around the world who, quite reasonably, want the same standard of living that people have in the first world. But here's the brutal math of it. With the way we do things now, that is just not possible. The planet does not have enough resources for everyone to live that way.
But, and this is the most important but, there is a huge reason for hope. We have one advantage that none of these other societies had. We are the first civilization in human history that can actually look back. We can see the ruins. We can read their stories. We can learn from what they did wrong.
So yeah, the stories of these fallen societies are a warning, a huge one, but they don't have to be a prediction of our own future. Their story is over. Ours is still being written. And that leaves us with the final, critical question. They didn't have the knowledge that we have. We do. So what are we going to do with it?